So, Tolly, what bubble are we popping today?
I don't know, Carla. Let's find out.
Happy Black History Month, my black people, and I mean everyone else, but mostly black people.
Hey, happy Sunday.
I had to switch it up, It's Black History Month.
It is. It do be Black History Month, though.
It's Black History Month, though. How are you doing this fine Sunday, Carla?
I'm good. I'm excited. I say that all the time. I need to switch up my words. I feel really good about what we're doing with this episode, with this series. How are you, Tolly?
You're right. Let me use another word than excited.
Right.
I'm feeling black. Just black all around. Just you know how like you wake up and you feel like black, like you black? Well, today is like extra blackness in the world. Like
As you should.
just blackness flowing around.
As you should.
As I should. But I'm so excited for our first episode of our Black History Month series. Carla, let them know if they don't know, which they should know.
So if you tuned into our last episode, which you should have, you would know that Tali and I decided that for every Sunday of this month of February, we are going to be posting an episode every Sunday in honor of Black History Month.
Say what?
Okay.
Yeah, and if you didn't know that, that means you didn't listen to our previous podcast, our previous episode. So why are you listening to this one? You should be stopping this and going back.
And honestly, that episode was such a treat. We literally had so much fun with Kasamba. Like, that was the most fun I've had filming so far.
It was definitely a blast. Thank you again, Kasamba, for being our first guest of the 2021 New Year. Yeah, we're in 2021. I don't think we've made that.
Honestly, yeah.
We're in 2021, the month of February. I'm having a blast, 2020 who?
Another life, babe. It's another life.
I'm so excited. But so to start this episode or the series, every episode we're gonna start with a quote or a poem, and this poem is called "Won't You Celebrate with Me" by Lucille Clifton. And I heard it my freshman year, and I don't know, it's just something about it is just very. I'm gonna just read it, and then we'll talk about it.
Wait, but before you get into it, real quick, I just want to say that brief outline of this episode. Tali's gonna share the poem, and then we're gonna go into some history about some lesser known people in Black history, which we're really excited about. We gotta drop some knowledge.
We're about to drop some knowledge. We're about to drop some knowledge. Get out your notebooks, your papers.
Right.
Just okay.
Right. So Tali, go ahead.
But it's called "Won't You Celebrate with Me" by Lucille Clifton. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into, a kind of life? I had no model, born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up, here on this bridge, between starshine and clay. My one hand holding tight, my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. I just, it's just so good. And especially that last part, let me read it again. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. If that isn't the definition of being Black, I just don't know what is.
Not only that, but a Black woman in the intersection, because this is about intersectionality right
here. Intersectionality, she said a non-white and a woman, okay, so we figured because we're dropping knowledge, we might as well drop some knowledge on Lucille Clifton, right? She was born on June 27th, 1936 in Dupuis, New York. I hope I'm saying that right. But she's written many books of poems throughout her lifetime, like Good Time, which is one of the names of her series or her poem book. I don't know if that's correct, but yeah.
She was a poet laureate, I think, for Maryland. And so
Mhm.
so this is actually really important because if you guys tuned into the inauguration last month, Amanda Gorman, who is the I think National Poet Laureate, by the way, the youngest one to ever do what she did,
And
as
she,
she should,
as she should,
as
another
she should.
person we gonna.
But she was the poet laureate, and she was the one who gave the poem at the inauguration. And so Lucille Clifton was the poet laureate for Maryland um, many years ago. I think this is maybe in like the 70s, I want to say, but or the 80s. But that's a very important role, especially for a black woman. For a
Mhm.
black woman being the poet laureate, like as they should.
Black woman power. But yeah, she also has other collections of poetry, including Blessing the Boat, which won a National Book Award, Good Woman, Poems and a Memoir, which was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, and she's the recipient of the University of Massachusetts Press Juniper Prize. Like, just looking her up and learning about who she was and her legacy and what she left us behind is like it's so important because this little poem that I found, and then I like look more, and then you like find more poems, and you find more legacies, and it was just beautiful.
And it's like the way that she wrote this such a long time ago to us. It honestly wasn't even that long ago, but because we're so young and we're living in 2021, it feels like such a long time ago. And for her to have written these words and for those to resonate with us, I guess it's reflective of the times and the lack of change or the change that we've seen. But I want to say, in some way, you find comfort in being able to put things that you feel to words. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
To like hear something. You know when you hear something and you're like, damn, that's it.
that's exactly what I was thinking. But yeah, she did a very good job with this poem, and she sadly died of cancer on February 13th,
I think it was 2010.
2010. But I mean, her legacy still lives on, and she has so many more awards and recognition. So if you have time, which we all got time is literally right there. Takes 2 seconds to look her up and read one of her poems, and just analyze it. Just think about her words and the way she writes, the words she chooses. Like those are so important. So yeah.
She was best known for writing on themes about or related to African American heritage and feminist issues. But I wanted that latter part is so important, the whole feminist issues, because we know that historically black women have always been left out of white suffrage movements by white women and just the entirety of feminism and queer women, black queer women. And so I don't know, I just think that that part there is so important because you have a black woman who is making way for girls of color in the future, right?
Yeah, and speaking of, feminism and like black women being excluded, I actually just finished reading well, not I finished it a while ago, but I read Hood Feminism by Nikki Kendall, and well, it just really targeted and talked about how feminism or like the movement isn't all it's cut out to be, and it was very like educational. So I'm just recommending out there, you could find it in the library, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or your small town local bookstore might have it. Support the small businesses. But yeah, it was a really, and I thought I should shout it out.
Yeah. And especially about that whole piece of intersectionality. I know we already talked about it, but intersectionality is so important. And I feel like a lot of people don't exactly grasp the severity of what it means to have multiple identities that put you at a disadvantage, make you a minority. And so I just think that that whole concept is really important and that people should educate themselves. So go read a book. Tali just recommended a really great one, but there are others. Do your research, read some books, gain some knowledge.
That's right, gain some knowledge. But yeah, we just wanted to give you guys a little background on the poem I read and who wrote it. You know, giving artists and Black people the credit where they deserve. So yeah.
So we also want to talk about the history of Black History Month,
The
because
history. Emphasis on history.
Black History Month wasn't always a thing. It was not always a thing. And like we said before, it didn't happen that long ago. Like, it was after the Civil Rights Movement. This was after MLK marched on Washington and after he got assassinated. Like, this was after that. So we just want to give y'all a little brief history because this wasn't that long ago. So we need to be aware of the past. Okay, so we're not ignorant. Right.
And making mistakes in the future.
That too. Okay, so Black History Month started as Negro History Week in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, who wanted to celebrate Black Americans and other people of African descent and their achievements. So that includes people who were entrepreneurs, who invented things, you know. So he wanted to celebrate their achievements by creating Negro History Week back in 1926. But it became a monthly celebration back in 1976, which is what I meant by right after the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s, which is crazy to me.
Like, that's, let me see if I can do my math right. 50 years apart, where Black History Month was like established as a thing. Right? I did my math right. 1926, 50, 76. Yeah, that's 50
not even 50 years. That's like 46 years, I think. That's 46 years ago that this became a monthly thing. My dad was 2 years old when this started. Sorry, Dad, for dropping your age, but my dad was 2 years old when that happened.
Yeah, it's just bringing up like that idea of like a lot of the times people are like, oh, it happened so long ago, it's in the past. It's not. This is like our parents' age, your parents' age. This isn't any different. This is not 500 years ago. This was 46 years ago. So yeah. And so one thing we found out, which me and Carla are still shocked, every year there's a theme for Black History Month. It's set every year by the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which was also founded by Carter G. Woodson. So this year's theme for 2021 is the Black family representation, identity, and diversity. And last year's theme was, I think, African Americans in like voting, but this year's theme is the Black family representation, identity, and diversity. So just keep that in mind throughout Black History Month this year when you're talking about Black History Month, you're talking about Black families, you're talking about their representation, their identity, and their diversity. Because if you look back in the history books, the Black family was really like, in slavery, that was something like bizarre, the way they were just kept apart,
Right. Like, it was a fundamental institutional thing to tear Black families apart. And I know that today there's that stereotype that Black fathers are never present for their kids and because they're always in prison or they just don't care. But that's a stereotype that started when slavery was a thing. And that was intentional by their enslavers and the oppressors to keep these families apart so that they couldn't form connections. And that was something that Talia and I learned this year in history class, which we had no idea. But that is where that stereotype comes from these families being torn apart so that they couldn't form connections. And it was a reason to give more power to these enslavers so that they could. Anyway, I can get really passionate about this. I can go on and on, but
it's just so interesting because like me and Carla always talk about this, but whatever we're learning in history right now always like comes back in our faces, and we're like, oh, we know this because we just learned this. So when I found out that this year's theme was the Black family, I was like, oh man, y'all have no idea about the Black family. Y'all got no idea what the system tried to do. They tried to tear away these people, and they've been talking about like after slavery ended, there were like newspapers and articles of Black families trying to come together. And that's why so many Black people don't know where they come from, because of that system that was built, that system that tear them apart. They don't know their history. So I mean, I'm in love with this theme because I think it's so important that we represent the Black families that are here now, that were there before, and that are going to come after. It's really just love it.
And like real quick, another thing to point out is the fact that we talk about this in the past, but it still happens today. Like the Black community is still preyed on by the judicial system. We know that Black men, especially, are more likely to go to prison off of a stupid little. It could be like a misdemeanor, and this man will be sent away for life. And we know about these innocent men who are on death row and have been executed. There have been a couple just in the last year who have been executed, even though they're innocent. And so, just it's reflective of the system, and it still happens today in a different form, but it still happens, and we just need to be aware of that.
Yeah. And well, this is why they chose February out of all of the months that could have been chosen, because it coincided with Abraham Lincoln's and Frederick Douglass's birthday. You know, history has taught me Abraham Lincoln isn't that great. If y'all didn't know, he's not what he wanted us to think he was. You know, he played some roles, like I get it, he made the Emancipation Proclamation.
He didn't even free all the
David,
slaves.
by the way, let me drop some history facts on y'all.
Do it.
The Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the rebellion states. So that means any state that came after, any states after that had slaves, that was legal. That was fine. It didn't affect nobody. So, I mean, I'm just saying, do a little research, because Abraham Lincoln and some of these presidents and some of these people we think did everything for Black people, they really just, they didn't do.
He was not the white savior.
He was not.
You know who freed the slaves? The slaves freed the
The
slaves.
slaves freed the
They
slaves.
they freed themselves. Okay.
But yeah, just thought we should drop some knowledge on your little Abraham Lincoln, because he's not that great.
For I want to talk about his four score many years ago. Okay. So we're gonna talk about another person in Black history, and his name is Gordon Parks. Now, Gordon Parks was born on November 30th in 1912 in
He's a Sagittarius.
Kansas. Why you gotta bring up his astrology?
I'm just saying, it's like the first thing I thought of when I read his birthday.
Okay, but he was the youngest of 15 kids. Can you imagine that?
I'm the oldest of 4 kids, but I can't even imagine it. I'm never gonna put it in my mind.
I kind of can. I'm the second youngest of 6, so
But 15, like 15, that's more months in a year. Like, let's think about it. That's more than I could handle.
imagine just having one.
It's too
Yeah.
much.
He was the youngest of 15. He had a pretty hard childhood. His mom died when he was 14, and his brother-in-law kicked him out of the house. And he didn't want to support him.
Yeah, so he went on to like working little jobs, but it wasn't really until he bought his first camera, which is a Voigtlander Brilliant. I suggest y'all look it up. It looks pretty cool. It's like a little, it looks like a little, how would I describe it? Like 2 boxes connected. For those of you art majors, you'll know which camera I'm talking about, but it looked very cool. And yeah, so he found it at a pawn shop in Seattle, and then he taught himself how to take photographs, which people who know how to take photographs, like learning and like individually, props to you, because I took a photographing class and you had to learn all these like numbers and what each thing does on a camera, and I don't remember anything from that class. So props to y'all, because it's a gift, it's a talent. But yeah, um and that basically started his passion. That was basically what ignited him. There's always something that ignites someone to find their passion, and that was the little camera. Yeah.
So after about a couple years, he obviously spent time. It was his passion, so he photographed what mattered to him, capturing the important moments. And so after a couple years of working at the FSA, which is the Farm Security Administration, his work actually started to pay off, and he was recognized as one of the best African American photographers in the U.S. And so in 1948, he published his first major photo essay in Life, which I'm pretty sure is still a thing today, right? Life magazine?
Yeah.
Right.
Something big.
Something like that. And so that led to him being hired as the first African American photographer in Life, or at Life, which is the magazine.
Yeah, so like, I mean, we picked him because, well, Life is still going on. It's a very big part of like the magazine industries and stuff. And for him to be the first African American photographer in Life, that's a very big thing. I mean, and like even looking at his childhood and just falling in love with um a camera. I mean, it was pretty like serendipity serendipitous
Serendipitous?
serendipitous.
Is
Guys,
this your word?
I learned it this week and I was like, I like this word.
Yeah.
But serendipitous. It was very serendipitous. Like it was like a happy, like lucky thing for him, and he just, I don't know, just seems like he was making moves. He was making
Right.
like he said, first African American photographer in Life. Like who? Like I don't know, but yeah,
That was big.
that
That
was
was
big.
big. Doing
That's
big
a big
things.
thing.
So Parks conceived many of his photo essays at this time, and he was able to extend profiles of prominent black leaders and athletes. This included Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and Stokely Carmichael. So this man was he was doing it basically, and he
Was
was doing
meeting
it
the people.
for
He
his
said
community.
he was doing it for his community. Yeah, it also
Right.
about when we were researching him. He photographed like real life issues. There's like people who photograph like anything, but he was like photographing real life issues, people with poverty, social injustice, marginalization. And even when he got his job in Life, it talked about how like he was in charge of his captions and he was in charge of his work because it was him and it was his passion. He didn't want it to be dictated by his boss. He didn't want it to be led astray. Like this was his thing, and he was like, "I'm gonna do it right, and I'm gonna do it the way I want it to be." I mean,
And the
he
thing about that too is that Life magazine, the audience was predominantly white. It was like white middle class, upper middle class people who were consuming this mostly. And so for that to be his audience, and then for him to still do what he wanted to do and cater to his own, process rather than trying to appeal to them, I think is really important for being able to do that in that time, because I think we know that a lot of what he was taking photographs of probably wasn't what white people wanted to see.
yeah, he has
The realness.
he has this photograph. It's untitled, but basically it was a protest happening in like Harlem, I think in like 1960s. And the photograph just says like we are it's a guy holding a poster that says we are living in a police state. I'm telling y'all, sometimes I get deja vu when I'm looking at these things and then you're like thinking about where you are right now. But he was really like into like protests and being there, like fighting for racial justice and stuff, and just like think about that. In 1960, he photographed someone saying we are living in a police state, and just look at the summer we had last summer and everything that's been happening right now. Like you can't tell me these things don't connect, that they don't travel through time, because it's a real problem, and it's been happening in his time, it's happening in our time. And I mean, we're lucky that he even was there to capture that photo, and it's such a beautiful photo. I recommend it. Doesn't have a title, but I'm sure if you look like Gordon Parks on Google, you can easily find the photo.
I think even the like we've talked about history a lot in this episode, and obviously cameras weren't always a thing. Now we take advantage of that. It's everywhere. We got social media, and it's so easy to just pull out your phone and capture everything, every little moment. But back in this time, technology wasn't as booming as it is today. And I feel like another thing that's often forgotten about history, we can't really know exactly what was happening because we weren't there and there's no way to tell. Sure, people paint and write stuff, but we can't really see it. We have to visualize it in our own minds. And so for someone to be there to capture these moments in history, the real life moments, is so like it's a privilege to be able to see that.
It is, especially when like you know that history just wasn't kind to Black people, and a lot of our stories are just not told because we just we didn't have the evidence, or there was no one to capture those moments. So for him to really be a part of that, there's like it's such a bigger picture to just know that this was happening, that what our ancestors fought for, that what those people back there did, that we understand and that we acknowledge them, because this is a constant battle. And I mean, there's proof in those photos and you just see them.
So one last thing that he did was, or not one last thing, but another one of the things that he did was make a film, which inspired a lot of Black artists after him to be able to have dreams and do the same things that he did. Like we said, he was a pioneer for people in his field, and he obviously left that behind and was an inspiration to many of them, because we obviously know that there has to be a first for everything. And he was the first Black man to be given the job as photographer in Life magazine. And so he was paving the way for the future, and he was the first. He went through that so that other Black people in the future could be given a similar or same opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Spike Lee mentioned him once, but he really was like, it really makes a difference when there's just one person that does it first, because then you can do it again, you know. In terms of like Black people, when someone does it, it's different. I just remember like when Barack Obama was president, I was like, shoot, I'm not a citizen of the US, but you know, maybe in like 30 years it could be like first non-citizen to be president, Tolly Joseph. You know, like those feelings that like somebody else, not saying I want the presidency job, it's looking a little rough right now, but but I'm just saying, like, the idea that one of our own people, after all these struggles and stuff, could find something liberating, could find their passion, could be there and do it and be so well recognized, just gives us another chance, just gives us hope. And I mean, yeah, and you know, there's other photographers that came after him. One of my favorite photographers is Carrie Mae Weems. I studied her in that photographing class I was telling you about that I didn't learn anything from. But she's an amazing artist, and she has these projects. One of them is called Colored People, and if you guys like search these up, you can find just wonderful photos. And I interpreted her project Colored People, and it's just like beautiful the way she takes these photos and the colors she uses and the people she uses. And then she also has this one called Slow Fade to Black. Like that one you really have to like look at, and you have to like look at the pictures, and there's just different meanings. And then this one, it's like a black and white. It's called the Kitchen series. And like you just, for like a small space of like a kitchen, she transforms it into like this whole story, and it's just so beautiful. So like I recommend looking at her artists, and I'm pretty sure there's several other artists, Black artists in history that have made an impact that we just don't learn about, or that we don't talk about.
And the thing about Black History Month too is we have to think about the history of behind it. Obviously, the Black history that we've learned, and the little celebrations that we've had every February since we were younger, has always been the whitewashed and dumbed down version of everything. This is what the victors, we often talk about the victors of history telling the story. This is what they want us to know. They don't want us to know that Abraham Lincoln wasn't this stand up, free the slaves, Black people deserve equality type of guy. They don't want us to know these things, so they whitewash this history. And so I think a lot of Black History Month too has also been whitewashed. And a popular misconception is that MLK was always happy doing what he did. MLK sometimes didn't want to get up every morning and to have to be the one to fight for it. He was made the poster child. And he's obviously very important, but we need to analyze the realities of all of it and dig deeper into what people are telling us, because we're not going to know the full truth if we don't look into it ourselves, because people don't want us to know the full truth. And so I think in honor of Black History Month, what Talia and I are trying to do is to bring the full truth to that, to talk about the lesser known people, to talk about the realities behind what the well-known people actually went through and they actually faced.
Yeah, and me and Carla can't target everyone. We just can't. But like I always say in this podcast, and I'll always continue to say, is we have so much resources available at our hands. Like, it's scary how much resource we have available at our hands. But it's also one of the greatest thing right now, because I literally named like a book, a show, a photo, and you can look it up and you find it in like 0.2 seconds. It doesn't take that much to just sit down for 5 minutes and read about someone new. And even if you're not into photography, something you're interested in, a Black person always has a part to play in it. And I'll say this to the day I die. Black people are the innovators for everything in life. Something that you're interested in, a Black person did it first. And they probably didn't get the recognition they deserve. So it's up to you to look up these people and figure out who they are, to tell your friends about them, to tell your class about them. Because when we're talking about history, when we're talking about the future, we need to include those. We need to give credit to where it's deserved, where it's due. Where it's due. Give credit where it's due. Because sometimes I'll just be sitting like in class and I'll be like, no, that can't be right. It just can't. I won't accept it. I won't allow it. Like, sometimes you'll just hear about these people and I'm like, she wasn't the first, or he wasn't the first. He probably was the first White person to take someone's credit, but he wasn't the first. And I also learned a lot of the things you use in your everyday life was created by a Black person. Just look it up. Just
simple as that.
Pick from your room, from your bathroom. Sanitary pads were created by Black women. The pads you use every single month were created by a Black woman. And I bet y'all didn't know that. And now you do. A lot of the things that we use in our life are created by Black people because we're just Black people. Like, we just do it. We're creators. That's our thing. So while we can't name everyone from every single topic, from every single place, it's important to give credit where it's due.
Right. And it's Black History Month, so people are probably posting about it on Instagram. And you may have come across a Instagram post of like several things talking about, the real people who invented, the Black inventors who created things. Look at that, or just search it up. There's a list somewhere. It'll pop right up. Just look up the Black inventors who create. Like, I kid you not. It's there. It's so readily available to you. Just look it up. Literally, Google, Bing, shoot. Look it up on Bing or Yahoo. Look it up. It's
Yahoo,
there.
Literally. And it's fine to question it. It's fine to question where certain resources come from. And that's, if you're gonna question something, you need to sit down and you need to figure out where it really came from. That's what I'm gonna say. If you don't believe me, if anything I said today was wrong, and if you're skeptical about it or anything I said in this podcast, look it up and come back to me, because I'm all for learning. I'm all for being told that I was wrong so I can better myself and be right the next time. Because that's what we do. In 2021, we're uplifting and we're learning the truth. We're bringing the truth to the table, because I'm sick and tired of listening to the same whitewashed history, because it's not doing it for me.
Thank you for that. I agree with everything you just said. We always like to end with a little bit of Black joy. So Talia and I are going to be making a playlist for Black History Month. We're going to try to get it on our Spotify so that if you go to Popping the Bubble on Spotify, you'll be able to see the playlist. But we're going to make a playlist of all of the Black creators that might be lesser known, that aren't mainstream. Maybe some of the mainstream ones too, but we just want to make a playlist in honor of celebrating Black artists. And so if you guys have any suggestions of things that you want to see on this playlist, we'll probably post an Instagram story and let you guys send in some songs.
Yeah, if you're not
Please do
following us,
that.
if you're not following us on Instagram, it's popping the bubble. That's where you literally get all the information from. And you get little sneak peeks. Sneak peeks of what? I don't know, but you should follow us on Instagram to figure it out. But yeah, we're definitely, if you guys have any songs, suggestions that you want to go on this Popping the Bubble Spotify. Spotify is better than Apple Music. So um not me always being controversial in this podcast.
Let's not discriminate against our Apple Podcast users, okay?
No. All users, wherever you download this podcast, wherever you listen to it, you're elite. You the best. YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever else we drop this.
I don't think we're on
We're
SoundCloud.
not on SoundCloud. I feel like we should.
No.
But you know what I'm saying? Anywhere you listen is elite. And we're very grateful that you take the time to listen to us every other Sunday. It means a lot. I don't think I said this enough. I'm not hating on Apple. Please keep listening to our podcast.
You just lost my entire family.
No, please keep listening to our podcast. Please. Thank you. But yeah, it's gonna be on Spotify. The link is gonna be on our Instagram link tree bio with all of our other resources and platforms available. But yeah, we should name some of the songs that are gonna be on this playlist.
Okay, can I say my favorite?
Yes.
This one is an oldie but a goodie. Okay, Miss Jackson by Outkast. I'll be singing that song.
Let's sing the song
all
like
day,
randomly, every day, 24/7, every second.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh.
Not. One of mine is Golden by Jill Scott. I love Jill Scott. Like just her voice, her song lyrics. Like I'm gonna put y'all on to the best old music ever because just yes.
We got Cranes in the Sky, Solange. Ooh,
Solange,
blessing our ears.
blessing our ears. Fabulous. I think I heard this from like a shared playlist when I went to SDLC, and I play this song every day. It's like my anthem. I just have to. It's like, don't hate on us because we're fabulous, and it's just so good. Brown Skin by India Ari. A teacher, she like sent me one of her other songs, and then I looked her up, and she's amazing, and I just love her. She's so good. There's definitely gonna be more. You know, Beyonce's gonna be in there. Brown Skin Girl, I sing that like 24/7. But
Yo, about India Irie though, real quick. I had a friend in middle school, Kiala. If you're listening, shout out to you. But I always used to be with her and her mom, and her mom would always play India Irie in the car.
Just so good. Like her
Irie, like, oh, it's so good.
Her voice, I'm like,
shout out to Mama Jewel.
I'm like, sis, God, why did you not bless me with this voice? Because she's just beautiful, and her songs. I think she has another one called like Strength, Courage, and something else, and that one's really good too. But yeah, that's y'all know I'm gonna be hitting y'all with that black joy, that black magic. So yeah.
And I think honestly, I think this is something we should do from now on. Just create playlists.
Just create playlists. I got it.
That is all we have for today's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We love you. We'll see you again next week.
Right.
Can you believe that? We'll see you again next week.
Not in 2 weeks, but next week.
Next week.
We're super excited. Like I don't think there's another word but excited. But we're really super excited for this. And we hope you learned something new today. Because I did. And I had fun doing this podcast. I think this was one. I would say this about every podcast, but every podcast we do just gets better and better as we go. And I just love it.
Like, it honestly does. It just gets better and better as we go. We just have more fun every episode. And sometimes they get longer.
Sometimes they get longer. And, you know, even like before we record, me and Carla were just.
It's just a vibe every time.
It's the vibe. Like it's my
vibe.
It's our happy place, and I love it.
Thank you all for tuning in again.
I'm Tolly.
I'm Carla.
And that's on Black History Month.